Hello, this is Stefana Muller from DataGrid Systems. Today I'm going to show you how to get started with Skopos Continuous Deployment System for containers. This tutorial is about 10 minutes long and will show you how to install Skopos, get it up and running, and try it out yourself. So the first step for you to try out is to go to datagridsys.com/get started. This is our website that gives you the basic commands to run to get Skopos installed. If you scroll down here, you'll see that there is a first step of registration. If you register with your first name, last name, and email address, we will be able to get in touch with you if there's an update to Skopos. The second step is to install, and the third step is to open up the application and go through the tutorial there. So let's go through the install now. I have a very small image virtual machine. It's called a droplet that I'm using from DigitalOcean. You can do the same. It's about $10 a month if you want to check that out. It's an Ubuntu instance, so it already has Docker installed as well. You could also do this on your local machine if you have Docker installed, or you could do this on your own VM wherever you'd like. Again, it just requires Docker installed. So the first step is to log into your machine and then run the command. So I'm going to do that first. Okay, now that we're logged into the machine, we're going to go and run the install command. And that's right here. Just copy and paste. It's completely formatted the correct way here. So all you need to do is copy the text and paste it in. And as you can see, Skopos will pull and it will get extracted and it will completely be up and running as soon as you are done here. Just to keep in mind, it's installing on a specific port, so the port is 8090. You'll see it in a moment. Now that it's installed, you can see that up here I have my IP address, 8090, and I refresh and the screen comes up. So there you go, Skopos is installed. Now that you're installed, there's three ways to get yourself up and running with the application. The first way is to discover any existing apps. So if you have an application running in Docker today, you can use this discovery tool to click discover and it will discover that application that's up and running, and it will create an image or a visual of what that application looks like so that you can continuously deploy it. The second option is to import from a Docker Compose file. Now, if you have an application, it's already ready to be deployed, but you haven't deployed it yet, and you have a Docker Compose file of that application, that's a great descriptor to start with. You can do that here. For this demo, I'm going to use a demo application because I don't have my own app and I don't have a Docker Compose file. So let's click on Use Our Demo App. So using the demo app, this is a very simple step. All you need to do is name the demo app and click import. What this does is actually imports our demo application from GitHub. And now that it's done, I am ready to deploy this application. It's as simple as that. However, for this demonstration, I want to show you a little bit more about Skopos before you go through that deployment. So I'm going to actually drive into the specific application and show you a bit about what this app does and how the lay of the land really here on the Skopos UI. The first thing that you'll notice is that there is a layout here of the architecture of my application. Just so that you know, this application is the voting app that you might have seen through Docker. It's a demo application of voting for pets. You vote for dogs or you vote for cats. There is an Nginx front end here that points to the voting instance. There are actually 3 instances of the vote. The second thing that's in the middle here is the worker that works and does all the work between the vote and the result. And then the third is the result itself. So there's 2 front ends, the vote and the result, and I'm going to actually show you them up and running in a minute. The interesting thing about Skopos here is that it's giving you a lay of the land of all the dependencies between these different components. The Nginx instance depends on having a vote app behind it. or for instance, the database must be installed first before anything else. So in the case that you are updating a single component here, the sort order is really important. Skopos outlines that for you in a few different ways. One is in this visual, which is nice to have. It's great to share with your team. The other is in a descriptor file, and the descriptor file really is what renders this visual. So let's go into the model descriptor so you can see a little bit more about what we generated here when we imported that application. Now, the model here is in YAML, and it is very similar to Docker Compose. And like I said earlier, you have the ability to import a Docker Compose file to create this model. You can do that, again, you can create the model in 3 ways. One is doing the import from Docker Compose. The second is to scan an existing running application and we will create the model descriptor for you. And the third way, which is another, it's very simple, but it is the most intensive way, which is to write your model descriptor yourself. Again, very basic YAML, describes the application, tells us the dependencies between the specific components. Now, the model descriptor is really important to Skopos. In order to use Skopos, you need to have a model descriptor, an environment descriptor to understand what environment you're deploying to, and that will allow you to create a plan. So when we uploaded this application into Skopos, we automatically generated a plan for deployment. I'm going to show you that now. This plan for deployment goes through and says, okay, there are a few steps in the beginning. First, I need to check to ensure the network exists. These are plugins. These plugins are the way Skopos can actually execute your deployment. As you can see here, each step along the process has some detail. In addition to the detail of the steps going forward, we have an automatic rollback plan. So if something were to fail at step 2 or step 50, we can automatically roll back your application to the last known good state. I'm actually going to start the deployment now because it takes about 2 minutes, and while I'm deploying, I may give you some more information about the application. So I'm going to click the action button, Start, and you can see that there is a way to pause the application button too. So you can say, I started the deployment, but I want to pause it and I want to abandon it at this point. Or you may say, I want to step through this manually, one step at a time. So you have the ability to troubleshoot your deployment very clearly and in a visual way. I'm going to resume the deployment, and as we do that, I'm going to go back to the model and show you a little bit more of what this UI can do for you. On the upper left side of the screen, there are 2 options here. There's an auto detect and an auto deploy. These are the levels of autonomy. In the case that you have an application that you're trying to deploy readily all the time without having a user interaction, you can set up auto deploy. It will detect changes in your repository up in Docker and will automatically deploy the new updates. This is really helpful if you have a large team or if you don't want to actually click a button every time you want to deploy something. The auto detect option is what we had automatically set when we started this application, and you saw that it detected a change was ready and available, and it gave us the option to go and click the deploy button. And the action button allows you to click and decide whether you want to deploy, do a force replace of that application, or a complete teardown. So that action button can change, and when the deploy isn't in progress, you will be able to hit the start button to perform the action that's listed here. So as you can see while I was talking in the background, the deployment is actually happening for the specific application in order that we saw in the plan. We're actually almost done, and you can see if we go right back into the plan, we're at the end of the deployment process. And we're done. Okay, well that was a successful deployment, and we're going to go back to the model so we can take a look at what that looks like now. This tells us that everything is up to date and we're ready for the next update. Now let's actually show you the application running. So if we go over to this 8881, you notice that port 8881 happens to be the results screen. So that front end that I mentioned to you, there's two front ends, the vote and the results, and this is the results screen. Now if I go over to the vote screen, here you go, it's now up and running. Okay, that's the end of our basic tutorial of how to get Skopos up and running. And the next tutorial will give you some more details on how to get this new cats and dogs application upgraded a bit with some great pictures. So look forward to working with you again. Thanks so much. Have a good day.